The rule was simple. A supervisor could listen to any operator on any call at any hour and never had to tell her she was being heard. She sat at the switchboard with a headset clamped to her ear, and somewhere behind her, a woman she could not see was scoring her words. This is what the phone company did to the switchboard operator, and most of it would be illegal today. They called it service. They called it quality, courtesy, the voice with a smile. It was surveillance, and it ran all day. It gets worse. There is the switchboard at number 6 that no black woman in America was hired to sit at, and the 30-pound rule at number 7, a company invented so one operator could never leave it. Hit the subscribe button. This is a documented record. Number 20, the girl they went looking for. Before a single call, the phone company already had a picture of who it wanted at the board. She was young, fresh out of high school, and what the company called respectable. She had the right manner, the right background, and a voice that carried a certain way. The historian Venus Green, who spent 16 years inside the Bell system before she wrote its history, described the image the company built around the job. It was not a job you simply took. It was a job you were selected into, against a template you never saw and could not read. A young woman could be quick, capable, and eager, and still be turned away because she did not match the picture. The picture came first. The person came second. Nobody had to explain the picture. It did the explaining for them. Number 19, the voice test. She was screened on how she sounded. The phone company wanted a particular voice, clear, warm, easy to understand, and it listened for it before it hired her. A woman could be told she was not right for the board because of her diction or her accent, the shape of her vowels, the region in her speech. The reasoning was dressed up as practical. Women, the companies claimed, enunciated better and pitched better for the line, and so the work belonged to them. But inside that claim was a filter, and the filter had a preference. It rewarded a certain kind of speech and quietly failed the rest. Her competence was never the question. Her sound was. She opened her mouth in the interview, and a stranger decided in a few sentences whether the way she talked was acceptable. The voice was hers. The standard for it was not. Number 18, the dress code. No customer ever saw her. She worked in a room full of women in cords, invisible to every person she helped, and the phone company still told her what to wear. No slacks, no bright jewelry, a strict, plain standard of dress enforced on a floor the public could not enter. Operators who worked those years remember it plainly. No pants were allowed. The rule had nothing to do with the job, because the job was a voice on a wire and a hand on a jack. It had to do with control, with the idea that a woman on the company's payroll was the company's to arrange, down to her hemline, whether or not anyone would ever lay eyes on her. She dressed for no one. She dressed because she was told to. The rule did not need a reason. It only needed her to follow it. Number 17, the body that fit the board. The switchboard was tall, and the work was physical in a way people forget. She reached across a wall of jacks up to the highest row and held a straight, fixed posture for hours while she plugged and unplugged cords by the thousand. Before she was hired, the company checked that her body suited the machine. She had to be tall enough with a long enough reach to work the whole face of the board. Then, at the position, she sat as she was told to sit, upright, feet flat, headset on, eyes forward. The board did not bend to her. She was measured and shaped to fit the board. Her body was hired the way the rest of her was, as equipment that had to meet a spec. It was waiting for her before she arrived, and it did not adjust. Number 16, the number, not a name. To the person on the line, she had no name. She was operator, and if she was anything more, she was a number, a position on a board, one seat in a long row of identical seats. She could be swapped for the woman beside her without the caller ever knowing. That was the design. The phone company did not want a person on the line. It wanted a function, smooth and interchangeable, that answered the same way every time, no matter who was wearing the headset. She spent her day being the most personal thing in a stranger's life, the voice that connected them to family, to a doctor, to help in an emergency, and she was not allowed to be a person while she did it. She was a slot in a system. The name she was born with stopped at the edge of the room. Look at what has happened already, and she has not yet answered a single call. The phone company has chosen her face and her background, tested her voice, fixed her clothes, set her posture, and taken away her name. Every one of these came before the work, before she plugged in a cord, before she connected a stranger to a stranger. The company had already decided what she would be. What follows is what it did once she was actually at the board, wired in with the shift stretching out ahead of her. Number 15, the schedule she was handed. The board had to be covered, and the traffic did not keep human hours, so neither did she. Calls peaked in the morning and again in the evening, and the company built her day around those peaks. The split shift was the worst of it. She would work the morning rush, be sent home unpaid through the dead middle of the day, and be called back for the evening rush, a full day's stretch for a partial day's pay. Night tricks fell to the newest women. The schedule was arranged for the load on the wires, and her life was fitted into the gaps that were left. She did not choose her hours. She was assigned them, and she rearranged sleep, meals, and family around a timetable the traffic wrote. The clock in the room did not belong to her. It belonged to the calls, and she was scheduled to serve them. Number 14, the relief she had to ask for. She was plugged into the board, and she could not simply get up. A row of positions had to stay staffed, every one, and if she left hers, a call would go unanswered. So she could not step away, not to stretch, not to rest, not to use the bathroom, until a relief operator came to take her seat. Relief came on a schedule, a set number of minutes in the morning and the afternoon, granted, not chosen. Her own body ran on someone else's timetable. A grown woman had to wait for permission and a substitute before she could leave a chair. Think about what that means across a full shift. The most basic freedom a working person has, the freedom to stand up and walk away for a moment, was rationed to her in fixed portions by the clock on the wall. The board held her there. It let go when it was ready. Number 13, the silence between them. She sat shoulder to shoulder with other women, a whole row of them, and she was not to talk to them. No chatting between calls, no turning to the operator beside her, no ordinary human back and forth that every other workplace takes for granted. Eyes on the board, attention on the lights. The floor supervisor watched for it, and idle conversation was a mark against her. So she spent hours in a crowded room in a strange kind of isolation, surrounded by people, connecting strangers all day, and silent among the women a foot away from her. One of them, years later, described the job in exactly that word: lonely. For all the talking she did, there was very little she was allowed to say to anyone who was actually in the room. The company filled her ears with strangers and emptied the space beside her. Number 12, the voice with a smile. She had to sound pleasant, not just be efficient, be pleasant in the tone of her voice on every call, all day, no matter what came down the line. The phone company sold her warmth as part of the service, the famous voice with a smile, and it held her to it. When a caller was rude, she stayed warm. When a caller was drunk, she stayed warm. When a man used the line to say something obscene to a young woman who could not hang up on him, she stayed warm, because ending the call or losing her patience was the thing that could cost her the job. Her feelings were part of the product. The company had decided what she should sound like, and she performed it whether or not she felt it, to people who owed her nothing, and sometimes gave her worse than nothing. She absorbed it and smiled into the wire. The smile was not hers to withhold. It was the company's to require. Number 11, what she heard and could not tell. She heard everything. Placing a call meant she was on the line, and before direct dialing, she was in the middle of the whole town's private business. The arguments, the bad news, the secrets people told each other believing no one else was there. She was there, and she was bound to silence, absolutely, because repeating a word of what she heard was a firing offense. So she carried other people's lives in her head and let none of it out. Here is the part that turns it over. While she was forbidden to reveal a single thing she overheard, her own calls could be listened to by a supervisor at any time. She was trusted with the whole town's privacy and given none of her own. She held everyone's secrets and kept nothing back. The line ran one way. Everything flowed toward the company, and nothing was allowed to flow back out. Stand back from the board for a moment and see the shape of it. The company took her time and split it to suit the wires. It plugged her in and rationed the right to stand up. It required her feelings and forbade her friendships. It filled her with the town's secrets and let her keep none of her own. Reach into a working life that far, into the hours, the body, the feelings, the private mind, and you would expect the job to at least pay well. It did not. It paid her at the very bottom. Number 10, the pay that stayed at the bottom. For all of it, she was not paid well, and she was never meant to be. Historians of the industry are blunt about it. Operators were not highly paid. The wage was set low and kept low, below the men who worked in the same buildings doing the technical crafts, the installers, and the switchmen who kept the equipment running. Her work was skilled. It was fast, exact, and unforgiving, and a mistake was public and immediate. But it had been marked as women's work, and women's work carried a women's wage, a rate fixed less by what the job demanded than by who was doing it. She could be the best operator on the floor, and the number on her check would not move past the ceiling built for her job. The pay did not measure her skill. It measured her place, and her place had already been decided. Number 9, the machine that was replacing her. All through the decade, the phone company was building the thing that would put her out of work, and it was not a secret. Direct distance dialing arrived in 1951, and it let a customer reach across the country with no operator at all. By 1960, more than half of Bell's customers could dial their own long distance. Every switch the company installed was a seat it would not need to fill. Management sold the change as progress, and it was for the company and for the men who moved into the new technical jobs it created. For her, it meant the work was disappearing under her hands. There was no retraining owed to her, no protection, no soft landing. Her job was quietly marked as something the future could do without. She kept the town connected right up until the machine learned to do it without her, and then the machine did. She was training the system that would replace her, one call at a time. Number 8, the job with no way up. Look at the whole building, and the pattern is impossible to miss. Every operator was a woman. Every supervisor and manager above her was a man. The operating room was a floor of women with a ceiling of men, and the only way up led out of operating entirely through doors that were not open to her. She could work 20 years at the board and retire as what she started, an operator. This was not an accident of the 1950s. It was the structure of the company, and it held for so long that it finally took the federal government to break it. In 1973, AT&T signed a landmark consent decree with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, one of the largest of its kind, worth tens of millions of dollars in back pay to women and minorities the company had held down for years. The decree was so blunt about how women had been sorted into operator jobs that it ordered the company to start aiming its operator recruiting at men. It took a court order to make the company hire men for the job it had reserved for women. Number 7, the better job she was barred from. Lorena Weeks went to work for Southern Bell as an operator in 1947, and she stayed with the company for years at the board. In 1965, after the Civil Rights Act made it illegal to refuse a job on the basis of sex, she applied for a better one in the same building, a switchman's job with better pay. She was turned down. The company said the work was not for women. When she pressed, it produced a rule that a woman could not be required to lift more than 30 pounds and used it to keep her out. Never mind that the operator's chair she already sat in came with heavier lifting than the job she wanted. She sued. She lost in the lower court, and she did not stop. With a lawyer from the National Organization for Women, she appealed, and in 1969, she won. The company's 30-pound rule was exposed as what it was, a wall in the shape of a regulation. The weight was never the point. Keeping her in her place was. Number 6, the color line. There was one more rule, and it decided who was allowed to sit down at all. The operator was sold to the public as a particular image: clean, courteous, and white. Historians have a name for it, the white lady image, and the phone company built its brand on it. For decades, that image was policy. Black women were kept out of operator work almost entirely, not by a written sign, but by a hiring practice that simply did not let them in. This was one of the largest fields of work open to American women, and a black woman in the 1950s could not enter it. She could have the voice, the schooling, the speed, everything the job asked for, and the answer was still no, for a reason no one would put on paper. The seat at the board was not offered to her. Black women did not win real entry to the job until the end of the 1960s. A generation who could have done the work never got the chance to. The company simply looked past them year after year and called it hiring. Everything so far has been about the edges of her, what she wore, what she was paid, where she was allowed to sit. Set all of it aside and you are left with the center of the job, the two things that were supposed to belong to a person and to no one else: her voice and her time. The last rules reached all the way in and took those too. What follows is what it meant to spend a working life with a headset on, saying the company's words on the company's clock while the company listened. Number 5, the board she was wired to. Start with her body, because the job began by binding it. She sat at the switchboard with a headset fixed to her ear and a cord that ran from her to the machine. For the length of the shift, she was physically attached to it. In front of her rose a wall of small holes and tiny lamps, and when a lamp lit, she answered, drew a cord, made the connection, and reached for the next before the first was finished. Elbow to elbow, with a long row of women doing the same, she plugged and unplugged cords by the thousand across a single day, arms up, back straight, tied to one position she could not leave. She was not a person using a machine. She was wired into it, a moving part of the switchboard for 8 hours at a stretch, her hands and her hearing rented and fixed in place. The board did not wait for her, and it did not tire. She kept its pace with her body until the shift released her, and the next day, she plugged back in. Number 4, the seconds. The phone company did not just watch how well she worked, it counted how fast, down to the second, on every call. There was a measure for it, the average work time, the number of seconds a call was supposed to take, and every operator was held to the average. The clock started when the lamp lit and did not stop until she released the cord, and the pace never let up, because the moment one call ended, another lamp was already glowing. A caller who was slow, confused, upset, or elderly was still her problem to move along, gently, warmly, and quickly, because her seconds were adding up on a tally she did not control. Time was the product, and she was measured in it. She could not pause to breathe between calls without the number climbing. She could not give a frightened caller an extra moment without it counting against her. The work came at her in a stream that had no bottom, and the company timed her swimming in it. Fast was never fast enough. There was always the next lamp, and the clock was always running. Number 3, the script. Here is the strangest rule of all. A woman whose entire job was to talk was not allowed to use her own words. What she said was written for her. Number, please. 1 moment. Thank you. The permitted phrases were few and fixed, and she was to stay inside them and add nothing of herself. No opinion, no small talk, no ordinary human remark, only the company's language in the company's order, delivered in the company's tone. The industry had a name for the result: the voice with a smile, a warmth manufactured to a standard and produced on demand. She spoke to thousands of people, and to none of them could she be herself. A grown woman said the same handful of scripted lines 10,000 times in a voice trained to sound like it meant them. Her mouth was moving all day, and the words coming out of it were not hers. They belonged to the company, and she was hired to lend them a human sound. Number 2, the listening board. She never knew when she was being heard. At any moment, on any call, a supervisor could drop silently onto her line and listen, and the rule was that she would not be told. They called it service observing, and there was equipment built for exactly this: a listening board from which a supervisor could monitor operator after operator without a click loud enough to warn them. Because she could be heard at any time, she had to perform as if she were being heard at every time. The full script, the timed seconds, the manufactured smile, held perfectly on the chance that someone was on the line. A wrong word, a flat tone, a call that ran long, any of it could come back to her as a mark against her record from a conversation she thought was private. So she policed herself all day on every call, more thoroughly than any supervisor ever could. That was the genius of it, and the cruelty. The company did not need to watch her constantly. It only needed her to believe it might be, and she carried the watcher in her own head. Number 1, the voice that was never hers. For 8 hours, she was wired to a machine by a cord she could not unplug. She said words the company wrote, in a tone the company designed, at a speed the company timed, while someone she could not see listened in to be sure she never slipped. Every part of the one thing she brought to work, her own voice, had been taken over. The words were not hers. The pace was not hers. Even the certainty of being alone in her own conversation was not hers. She was the most human point in the whole telephone network, the live voice a frightened caller reached for in the dark, and the company had hollowed that voice out and filled it with itself. She talked all day and was never once allowed to be herself while she did it. And then, switch by switch, the machine she served learned to answer without her, and the voice the company had spent years scripting and timing and listening to was, in the end, not even wanted. It was never hers to begin with. The company had only borrowed her mouth. At the end of a shift, one operator lifts the headset off, unplugs the cord from the board, and the sudden quiet is the first moment all day that belongs to her. She stands, finally, without asking. She was one of about 342,000 women at the Bell system and the independents in 1950, roughly 1 in every 13 working women in the country. The company that did this was not run by monsters. It was run by people who had decided, without ever quite saying it, that a woman's voice was theirs to script, her seconds theirs to count, and her every word theirs to overhear. And it was all documented in the company's own operating practice, in the listening board, in the consent decree that finally forced the doors open. In the case, a Southern Bell operator named Lorena Weeks carried all the way to victory. They called it the voice with a smile. It was a voice that was never hers. Did a woman in your family work a switchboard, sit at that board with the headset on? Tell me the one thing she was never allowed to say.